Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking some time with us this afternoon. I run the customer engineering team at Google Cloud Security, and I'm lucky to interact with many of you on a daily basis. Today, we're going to share a bit of our vision, as well as an intimate conversation with our business partners at ARAMCO. At Google Cloud Security, we're looking to solve three main issues. The first one is the number of growing threats that we see out there in the cybersecurity landscape. Things like AI, working remotely, OT, IoT, generating a much larger attack surface. Well, we've got to use cloud dynamics to protect your environment and ours. Additionally, cybersecurity, the number of tools available today, continue to grow exponentially. It's getting more and more complex unnecessarily. We want to simplify the workflows that you employ every day. Additionally, we continue to see the talent gap growing. If you look back to 2011, 2012, we had almost 2 million available roles across cybersecurity. Today in 2023, it's closer to 3.5 million. And we've got to find a way to improve the way we protect our infrastructures. So here's what we're doing at Google. First of all, we're using machines to defend machines. Threat intelligence is at the heart of it. And without threat intelligence, you don't have much capability around generative AI. Secondarily, we're looking to decrease that toil by bringing many network positions together. SIM, SOAR, threat intelligence, automation. The intent here is to make it a lot easier to protect what we value. Finally, we want to scale talent. And if there's a mechanism to do that, it's generative AI. The days of learning a new data model, the days of learning a new query language have all moved on, and AI can take a front seat in providing that service. If you know Google, you know we've made some pretty aggressive acquisitions here recently. So in frontline intelligence, you'll know some of those global brands such as Mandiant, VirusTotal, and of course, the very important threat intelligence we gather from our own stacks. We've got 9 different applications that serve over 1 billion users each. We're going to modernize security operations, and obviously it's important that you start with a cloud infrastructure that has the fewest number of major vulnerabilities across all cloud service providers. As mentioned, we secure by default. We secure by design, and we absolutely include security in every deployment or provisioning mechanism that we drive. This talk is about generative AI, and I want to share a little bit about what we've started to build. Many in the audience manage their own threat intelligence feeds. They're selective in what they distribute. We do as well, and we're lucky enough to gather quite a bit of information that we can fit into a large learning model that we call SecPalm-2. We've been building generative AI and artificial intelligence in the security space since 2011. SecPalm-2 rides on top of Vertex AI in the Google Cloud, and shortly we'll be offering availability to our partners and customers. So using a simple plugin, you can use the same large language model and the same AI capabilities that Google does every day. So these are 3 areas that we're going to spend some time on to help you address. I absolutely hope that you find value in what we can provide to prevent theft, prevent threats, decrease toil, and scale your organizations. Enough from me in Google Cloud. At this time, I'd like to introduce and invite to the stage Abdulrahman.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. Welcome. Please.
Thank you.
So Abdulrahman, I mentioned in my discussion that, generative AI provides some opportunities and some challenges. What do you see at ARAMCO?
So there's a book that I read when I was in college. It was the textbook for my cybersecurity course. And it's a book written by Sean Harris. I'm not sure if you guys know Sean Harris. It's the big blue book for CISSP. Sean Harris has passed away a few years ago, so there's no new versions of it. However, one statement stuck with me. And that statement was, with every new technology comes new challenges. And that has been true for a very long time. I bet when the wheel first came out, they had to face some challenges. The same thing happened with cars, airplanes, phones. And I'm sure a lot of us remember when the internet first came out, and the challenge actually gave us all jobs in cybersecurity. So there are obviously challenges, and a lot of them. The question is, are the challenges more than the opportunities? And to me, the answer is definitely not. I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities that can help us. We've seen a lot of challenges in the last few years. The first one that came to my mind, and I think a lot of us have experienced that. I remember the days when we had, when we used to tell our customers the best way to identify a phishing email is by grammar mistakes and vocab mistakes. That was our first way of identification when we wanted to identify a phishing email. But that's not the case anymore. With generative AI, it can produce, actually it can be tricked to produce the best well-written email that looks like it was written by a native speaker. Generative AI can speak English, can speak German, Spanish, French, Chinese, and even Arabic. And that's one way of looking at it. But it also changed the landscape of social engineering. If you think about it, nowadays we can copy a person's face, voice, the way they act or their demeanor, and build a deepfake with that. And we've seen that, which introduces a new threat when it comes to social engineering that we haven't had a lot of a few years ago. So that's from the social engineering point of view. The other side that I can think of is if you look at code development. So code development scares me in two ways. So the first one is malware development. I know they're not supposed to develop malware, but we've seen, and I've read a lot of literature where people actually tricked generative AI to develop malware, and we've seen that before. Another thing that comes into my mind, and it's a little bit less intrusive from developing malware, which imagine if a generative AI is used in a supply chain attack, where basically a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of us here, have moved from Stack Overflow and started using generative AI when they get stuck while developing code. And imagine if this was used to inject malicious code or backdoors into someone's code. Obviously, the challenges are limitless. But I think one main aspect that puts all of the challenges together is the speed, the ease of use, and the population of people that have access to generative AI that can do malicious activity. That being said, again, with every new technology comes new challenges. I still think the opportunities are quite more than the challenges. And we've seen that. We've seen that. I've read a report a while ago. I think it was the IBM Cost of Data Breach report. And it said that in 2022, the cost of a data breach went down by $1.76 million. Keeping in mind that the average cost of a data breach is $4 million, that's a huge significant. The other thing, and going back to the point of agility and speed, is it reduces the time to respond to an incident by 108 days, which is a lot. And I'm going to talk about effective security in a minute, but that is one of the benefits that we have already seen. Personally, we have used clustering and classification algorithms to try and identify attacks early on the basically kill chain, where we try to catch them during reconnaissance. And I think this is what effective security is. We try to identify, or the ability to identify an attack as early as possible, where the cost is very low and the recovery is fairly easier. obviously, the opportunities are limitless. One opportunity that I have suffered personally with is new SOC analysts when they first joined our environment, and you talked about this in your slides a little bit, is there's always this new system or a number of systems that you have to learn the query syntax of and the query language of. With the generative AI, you can use natural language and interact with the system easily. That adds another benefit where you can move from one vendor to the other without the need of learning and the overhead of vendor, I guess, vendor lock-in. That is some of the opportunities, and I'm sure, again, the opportunities are even more than the challenge that we have seen.
Very insightful. And you know, when I start to think about generative AI, I try to think about the future of security. Not only, you know, call it the risks, but also the opportunities. And with the future, the landscape has dramatically changed. And, you know, as I mentioned, you can definitely move away from having to learn that new query language or understand a new data model. You can just have a native conversation with that associated product. I mean, what do you see as the future, or how do you see the landscaping change with generative AI and security?
So I'm really excited for that change. Again, I try to be as kind of an optimistic person that looks into the good rather than the bad. The problem now is the bad guys are using generative AI a lot, and we have to start using it. Again, speed and agility is a benefit that we can get from. However, for prediction, I'm going to start with security operations because speed and agility is extremely critical in security operation. With generative AI, you can create, in addition to what we talked about before, you can create, it's good in summarization. You can use generative AI for threat hunting, IOC development, and threat intelligence. You can use generative AI in developing playbooks or security orchestration and automation. You can use it to create cyber ranges where basically you don't have to wait for an incident to happen to sharpen your SOC analyst capabilities. So you basically use generative AI to generate logs that looks like an actual incident, and then from that you can test your SOC capability to respond to that incident. Speaking of incidents, I've always loathed and hated writing incident reports, and I'm sure a lot of people agree with me here. It's the worst part of being a security operations manager. And with generative AI, it can produce these reports for you, and you can remove that from the talents you need to learn. That's more into security operations. However, you can see generative AI being useful in every other area of cybersecurity. If you look at application security, which is an area that I personally enjoy and like, is we've all used static and dynamic analysis solutions. But they have their shortcomings. They're more of a signature-based, not signature-based, but they look for specific patterns that they can identify to be one of the OWASP top 10 or any other vulnerability that can be exploited, a web vulnerability, for example, that can be exploited. However, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before, when the application does something that is not supposed to happen, something malicious like storing users' credentials, something like that, oftentimes SAST and DAST won't notice that. That's why we always push for the use of peer review. We've always asked someone else to review the code before it goes to production. And with AI in general, I think there is this opportunity where the model can understand the code and understand what the code is supposed to do, and based on that, it can detect such malicious activities. Governance is another area where we can benefit from AI. Unfortunately, governance now is a fairly static area. We've always used governance where we produce a document, we save it as PDF, and then we update it either annually or every 2 years, or depending on someone's internal process or strategy. However, the threat landscape is not that static. The threat landscape continues to evolve, continues to change. Threat changes with time. Sometimes you have higher threat levels, sometimes you have lower threat levels. And the governing documents should be living documents that change based on your threat landscape and your current threat levels, if we might say. So imagine a governance document where it's updated based on your threat intelligence, based on your threat hunting activities, that changes the environment based on the requirements that you need. It would close internet connection, it would basically restricting proxy access, and it would do other things. So that's another area that we can benefit from. Access management is another area where authorization is not as dynamic, and oftentimes people in cybersecurity don't understand the business side of their basically company, and oftentimes we find ourselves with authorization not being at the least privilege or need to know. So with AI, it can understand what the users are doing, and then based on that, they can produce authorization rules that fit the application or the system, enforcing these privileges and all of these other nice terms that we like to use in cybersecurity. Vulnerability management is another area where basically imagine if a vulnerability is discovered, the AI develops a patch for you. And I might be an optimist here, and I'm jumping ahead, but I try to be as hopeful as I can. So imagine if a vulnerability is discovered and a patch is automatically developed, a virtual patch, where basically before the vendor releases it. These are all opportunities that we can see in the near future. One area to me that is extremely important, and that goes back to the authorization point, is I work for an energy company, and being in Upstream, our work is a lot with geologists, geophysicists, petroleum engineers. And I'm not sure if anyone here has a background in any of these majors, but they're not as easy as we think. I don't really understand what they say, and I don't understand their data. And oftentimes, we cannot really produce effective threat cases without understanding the customer's data. And the customer doesn't understand cybersecurity in a way that allows them to help us develop these cases. So, and that's the case that we actually did, where basically we use machine learning and feed it with large data sets from our business and develop business-related sentiments that we can detect using our detection tools. And I see that even moving forward in the future with all of the advantages that we have in AI in the recent few years.
Wonderful. Well, in the last couple of minutes we have left, obviously some very insightful comments, and absolutely agree that when it comes to cybersecurity, the APTs, the indicators of compromise, just the overall strategy that, let's call it the bad guys use, is very iterative. And the power of AI lands on both sides. I think it's important to remember, too, that when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to the future of generative AI, the reality is it's going to change. And it's something that we all have to invest in, we all have to understand so that we can apply the proper level of efficacy, knowing that you're using it at ARAMCO. If there is 2 or 3 main things that you want to leave the audience with today, what would they be?
Sure. So 3 things that I have. AI is a double-edged sword, especially generative AI. It has been used for bad. Let's all start using it for good. The second thing is so basically there is no silver bullet for cybersecurity. It's a complex problem that is not technical. I wish it was, but it's not. And there's no silver bullet that would solve it. The risk is there. We can use AI. However, we still need good old cybersecurity experts. We need to invest in our talents and make sure that they have the tools that they require. And last but not least, and this has nothing to do with cybersecurity, however, a lot of times if you don't adapt, you fall behind. And AI is one of these. We have to move into AI, but we have to be careful. We have to keep in mind the risks that we have. And as IT experts and cybersecurity experts, we have to educate our users, our customers, family members, and the community about the risks that are associated with generative AI.
There's no doubt. Well, Abdulrahman, thank you so much for
Thank you for
taking some
having
time
me.
with us today, and I hope everybody enjoyed our talk, and we look forward to serving you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.